Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today we celebrate the release of one of the greatest albums of all time. It's Van Halen's 1984. Now, as a huge Van Halen fan, I always resist the temptation to say this album is better than that album, well, except maybe Van Halen 3, but you know what I mean. Every real Van Halen album to me is excellent, no matter who the lead singer is. But Eddie himself has expressed fondness for this album. He thinks it's the best they've ever done. Alex Van Halen recently reiterated that in his new book, Brothers. And so I want to just try to think about what are some of the things that made this album so good. Well, what made Eddie Van Halen so good was more than just being one of the best guitarists of all time. He was a virtuoso who changed the way that people thought about guitar, played guitar, and even changed the way people listened to guitar. But I maintain that what makes Eddie the most special is his wonderful songwriting ability. There are lots of virtuoso guitarists, including Alan Holdsworth, who Eddie loved, but the difference is that Alan wasn't the kind of songwriter that could come up with the riff, the chorus, the whole deal that Eddie came up with time after time. Think of all those unique riffs and how they're instantly recognizable, instantly can be recalled, whether you're a guitarist or not. Think of how all of the songs go together so well. Think of how they made you feel the fun, the energy, the positivity, because they were a really positive band in terms of the music they produced. Not so much the drama that went on, but you know what I mean. Now, on 1984, Eddie had the luxury of not being burdened by studio time because before that, all of their albums were recorded at Sunset Sound, and some of Diver Down was recorded at a studio in the Valley called Amigos. But the point is, these were professional studios where you're on the clock. For 1984, it was recorded at Eddie's home at 5150 Studios, where he and Alex could just jam out for days on end, refining the written songs that Eddie would then present to the band as a whole. And this allowed him to do exactly what he wanted, including the use of synthesizers on the opening sort of intro 1984, most famously on Jump, and also on the song I'll Wait, which is co-written by Michael McDonald. What a Fool Believes, Michael McDonald. Check that out. Now, all of the songs were great, but it had some really huge hits. It had Panama. It had Jump. It had Hot for Teacher, Drop Dead Legs, I'll Wait, a great song. And look, there's no filler on the album. Every track on the album is perfect, which is the test that I use to determine whether an album has got it or whether it ain't. And this album has got it. Now, of course, the making of this album drove David Lee Roth out of the band because he was very insistent that Eddie, as a guitar hero, should only play the guitar and not keyboards. And he had played keyboards before on albums, but not as prominently as on 1984. Not that there were any lacking guitar solos. There were great guitar solos on every song, as you come to expect from Van Halen. But David was making a point, and he wanted to go solo. He did. The band and the views of the public didn't miss a beat because Sammy came in, did 5150, which was a really great album again, took the band in a new direction, but equally good direction. Alex seems to think that this was the final album of the real Van Halen, but nevertheless the best one. And I do suppose, gun to head, if someone were to say, what is the Van Halen album? I couldn't go against Eddie and Alex. If they say this is the best album, I have to say so too. It's got the most iconic songs. According to both Eddie and Alex, it was produced in the way they wanted. It was made at Eddie's home so that there was zero outside interference. And I just don't think you can argue with that. I love every Van Halen album, but that certainly includes this one, which is a favorite of many, including the guys that made it. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.